deconversion is itself a process. The religious convert has ultimately been conditioned, and it is that conditioning which holds him in the grip of the ideology. In my case, I believed that Christianity was true, and my commitment to that was absolute. I had defended Christianity on college campuses. I had defended it wherever I would go. And what I learned from the defenders of theism, the apologists, everyone from Aquinas to Pascal to C.S. Lewis to Francis Schaeffer to Van Til to Gordon Clark to William Craig to Alvin Plantinga, I had learned and been taught that Christianity was not only true, but that it could substantiate the claim of it being true. And so I took this at face value. I believed it. I believed that if you have a position that is absolutely true, anything that tries to contradict that position will ultimately be overturned, and not overturned fallaciously, but overturned legitimately. And so I set about reading counterfactual literature. I set about reading the atheist texts, knowing that I would be able to produce a refutation of all of these texts because I had a system that was absolutely true. But what I came to learn was that these claims that Christianity was ultimately true, that these claims were false, that the assertion that Christianity was the identity of truth was not itself true. And so far from this liberating me, because I was so committed to what I was doing, it actually broke my heart. And the reason it broke my heart was because of the conditioning of Christianity in the first place. The last defense of Christianity is ultimately a form of fatalism, an appeal to nihilism. That is to say, an insinuation that if Christianity is not true, then life itself collapses in the face of meaning. That existence itself is void of meaning, it's void of justice, it's void of all these things, and that one is just falling through an abyss. And that's what I was taught. And I wrestled with this in despair. And it was that despair that the system tried to utilize to lock me in. This insinuation is made for that specific purpose, for locking the disciple in. Fortunately, I was able to question the nature of this claim. I was able to identify the proposition that was responsible for all of this despair, and that proposition was, if Christianity is false, life has no meaning. Now, when I challenged this, I discovered to my surprise that the origin of meaning had never been associated with Christianity in the first place. That's not to say that Christianity did not give me a faction of meaning, because it did. But I discovered that where I obtain this feeling of meaning in my life comes not from one source, but from a diversity of sources. It comes from the people we meet. It comes from the music we listen to. It comes from the literature we read. It comes from the act of the creative process. And when I learned this, it was like a great burden rolled away, because I realized that I'm alive now, and that I have to make the most of life now. And in terror, I realized that I had almost been cheated out of my existence. And that is perhaps the most frightening thing, and looking back, to think that one was so meshed in an ideology, so held in its sway, in its grip, that one could not break free. And that's a terrifying mindset to think about, that one can actually be locked in a system that powerfully without having the ability to challenge that system or to be critical of the claims of that system. The most important attribute in my deconversion was my desire for truth. Above everything else, I wanted to know what was true. And Christianity said it was true. And I believed it. And I took it at face value. But when I began to examine that claim, I found out that that claim was false. And it was only my commitment to truth, above everything else that I loved, that allowed me to break free of Christianity in the first place. The only thing that can protect us from an ideology that would enslave us is, above all else, a desire and commitment to truth.